and you're buying everyone's cups of tea because they say you don't do much for them.
Which email did you send it to, Drina?
Oh, I really don't know, Andy.
Yeah, because if it's the To Conserve one, I can't get it. So
What would you send it to? Sorry.
Andy Pringle 11, as in numerical 11, at gmail.com.
Oh, Pete's sake.
No, it's
Right.
nothing to do with Pete.
Oh, shut up about Pete. Oh, look, I'm sick of talking about frigging pirates. Pete, archaeological conferences, things to do. Oh, we're doing archaeology, aren't we? Right. Drina, any news from you this week, darling, other than the fact that you're going to an archaeological conference and whatever the conference is about archaeology, I presume, so that's good.
Yes, true. No news, sorry.
So you should apologise, Pete.
No, nothing for me, except Rick was caller, which I've already
Oh, yeah.
told everybody.
He was given a Congressional Medal of Honor, was he?
Yeah, that's right, he was.
Andy gets Congressional Medals of Honor in the sea. Andy, any...
Yes, yeah, they did, didn't they?
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Hang on, that's the President's Citizens Medal. That's not many. You got more chance of getting the Congressional Medal than that. Fair enough.
Very nice.
Well, it was
nice.
Awarded posthumously because he died in 9/11.
Hang on. That was quite a few years. That was 2002, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, yeah. Sunday was the anniversary of it, wasn't it?
And he's just been awarded the medal like last year.
No, well, 2019, I think, when he was awarded the medal.
Can I just ask you, right? Why does everyone keep coming and going in this lecture? Right, one of you's gonna have to keep an idea.
2019.
Thanks, Pete. Right, anything you want to say, Andy?
No, nothing to report this week, I'm afraid.
All right, what about you, David?
No, nothing, sorry.
What about you, Annie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, last week I saw a very interesting program about archaeology, and it was the first day of some conference, and it was the conference speech to explain what they were doing. And it was called Predatory Man, and it was looking at how man could have become predatory, and saying the real difference of man from other animals is their big brain. But he couldn't have become a hunter-gatherer until he'd got the big brain. So how did that grow? And so they were looking at they're looking not for artifacts, but the behavior. I don't know how we're going to find that. That sounds really interesting to be found out archaeologically, but there's been some thought that it was because they had more meat, because the brain needs a lot of energy. But now they have the idea it's fat. So they think that prior to becoming a hunter-gatherer, they were scavengers and they couldn't make proper tools. So they'd find rocks and break up the larger bones of animals that were left dying, and they could get the fat out of the...
I think they'd be dead at that stage, love.
Pardon?
When you said left dying, they'd be dead, wouldn't they?
No, well, they were dead, that's right. And
yeah,
so,
right.
And then they could get the tallow out, and the not tallow, is it, whatever it is, in the bones. And the only other animal that could get it out was the hyena. So there wasn't too much rivalry. And they think that because they could get this fat, which gave the brain a lot more energy, that the brain grew. And that led them into being able to be hunter-gatherers. I thought it was quite interesting, and that's what this is ongoing search that's coming up. I thought that was quite interesting.
Oh, good. By the way, I did promise to have a quick look at the adses and axes today, which I've only just realised. Right, okay, thanks for that. Yes, thank you. Right. What about you, Margaret's always Margaret said that she's got a revolutionary idea this week. So go and give it to us, Margaret.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I disappeared for a minute. Did everybody else disappear, or was it just me?
No. Just give us the revolutionary idea.
I haven't got one.
Oh, come on, make one up.
Well, on a similar theme to Anne, I was reading about because our brains got so big, we didn't have the scaffolding to support our big heads and big brains. And when we started walking on two legs, women had great difficulty giving birth. And in actual fact, we have our babies prematurely. And because animals have their babies and they can walk and do everything straight away, whereas human babies, we have to nurture them and teach them for the first couple of years. So
Right.
is that revolutionary?
No, you got me feeling a bit awkward then, because I just thought, well, you talking about babies being born prematurely. I think what you mean is when they're born, it's almost as if they are premature because they're not fully developed. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, right. No, yeah.
Unlike horses and cows, their babies are born and they can already walk and feed, etc. Whereas our human babies are premature, are actually born before the time because of the size of their heads and brains.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, that makes, and obviously the brain's not sort of fully developed, is it? And
That's
nor
right,
is the skull.
Yeah.
So yeah,
They have to be nurtured and taught everything for the first few years.
Right. That is true. That is true. Right. So I've just I've got a few things I want to do today, and I've actually got a little bit of backlog of things that I want to get on top of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would actually say that hang on. I would actually say that this class today was not supposed to go ahead. We had guidelines for Archaeology Cymru, and they basically said that if the Queen should pass away, we should be taking a week off the class. But somebody was so upset last week that they didn't have the class because I can't. We had meant to have the class at 7 o'clock last week. And because I cancelled it, one person was so upset because they were so looking forward to the class. So I thought, right, I don't want the same thing to happen today. So that's why we've gone ahead. And the other thing as well is I was teaching last week, and a word to the wise, when I'm in the middle of lecturing, right, and I was doing another class between 6 and 7 last week on a Thursday. And I was really enthusiastic going through the class, and it was like 35 minutes past 6. And somebody said, oh, I got an announcement to make. The Queen's just died. And I just thought, how am I supposed to carry on lecturing now? Oh, right, we just wanted you to know. So I just thought, do you know, so it was just like, okay, I'm going to struggle through now. I couldn't even get my words out right because I was just so upset. And I just thought, right, we're going to do 10 minutes. So I'm going to warn you guys, right? If there's ever something happening, right? Yeah. And you know about it, and we're in the middle of a lecture, I don't want to know. Even though it was the Queen's death, I just thought we I could have, it would have, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I don't really know where to start today because I want to do Cheddar Man, but in my notes are telling me that we should be doing axes and adzes. So I think the best way to do this is that, because I haven't got any images lined up, because I only just looked at my notes now, we're going to just do a little bit of a whiteboard, right? So so basically, the difference between this, hang on, if we draw this, if we think that this would be, say, the average profile of an axe, right? And it would be mounted like that. So obviously, that's the flat profile, right? And if you look at this in section, if you look at it like that, it's going to be something like that. So that basically that's an axe, and an axe can be used for cutting down trees, can be used in warfare, or whatever, right? When I say whatever, there's limitations to what an axe can do. There really is. And then an adze, if the side profile for an adze, right? And basic, I do know what an adze looks like, but I'm just trying to work out the best way of drawing it. Right, the best, if you want to, basically the profile of
If
an
you
adze.
turn that through 90, that would be it.
So basically, an adze would be something like that. But
Yeah.
if you that would be a side-on profile, right? But if you want to look at the adze as it would be something like that, right? So if we so oh god, so that there would be the profile of an adze, right? So basically, an adze that can be used for scooping out of wood. It can actually, if we go to the terminology for an adze, ADZE or ADZ, which I've never actually seen that spelling ADZ, but you know, let's give that one, is an ancient and versatile cutting tool, which is far more effective than an axe on the left. Similar to an axe, however, but it's more effective than an axe, with the cutting edge perpendicular to the handle rather than parallel. So that would be parallel, and that would be perpendicular. So basically, the shaft would be there, right? And that's the profile looking from above. Yeah, that's the profile looking from above, down on it, right? That's not side on, that's down. That's very important. And then we know that adzes themselves, this is why we're thinking of the one last week of the adze with the cremational context. Now we're remembering now that the lecture last week was about hermitage and the cremational burial. So this then leads us on to looking at Cheddar Man and why we're looking at axes and adzes for a moment. So the adze itself, they are used for smoothing or carving wood in hand woodworking. Now I kept saying that an adze can be used for agriculture, and in fact, yes, it can. It can be used as a rudimentary ploughing instrument, right? So if we sort of, this is what my notes are telling me anyway. I just needed some sort of clarity. So what you would basically do, you would have, hang on, you'd have the ground level here, right? And the adze itself would, there would be, and that would then cut into the ground, and then you would draw that towards you, right? You draw that towards you, right? And that would scoop and create a furrow. So it in other words, you could use it as a rudimentary ploughing hoe, and that's why I wanted to mention that. Now the modern adze itself, trying to sort of speed this on because I'm very aware that I've got lots to do. The modern day adze is otherwise known as a mattock, right? So looking down on a modern mattock, right? So you would have, if I draw this, should have actually had some images. So that would be looking down, and you'd have a very, and then that would be mounted from below, right? And that itself is a rudimentary mattock. Now, a mattock, I've actually used a mattock quite a lot in archaeological excavation, because I used a mattock in the same way I might use a trowel, because I know how to use it. You can use that bit there to clear away a layer, right? And you can use that bit there to get away any stone and anything that's resisting. as you're scraping through, but that's to go through layers above the archaeological layers that you want to take time in when you excavate using a trowel. Is that all clear? Good. I'm glad that's clear. Right, so what I need to do now is get off this. And yeah, sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that this week. But I'm just sorry. Anyway, so what I want us to do is I want us to look at Cheddar Man. Now, I am going to be reminded, but we've done Cheddar Man before, but I'm doing Cheddar Man in the right context. Now, we did look at Cheddar Man in a little bit of detail before, in the same detail we're going to do today. We're going to take a little bit further forward. The reason why we're doing Cheddar Man again is that Cheddar Man belongs in the Mesolithic period, not the Paleolithic period. I mean, the reason why we did Cheddar Man before, from obviously Cheddar Gorge, the reason why we did him before, Goff's Cave, the reason why we did him before was that I was doing a comparison between burials in the Mesolithic period and the Paleolithic period. The skeletal evidence from the Paleolithic period at Cheddar Gorge. Remember those head cups that seem to be dressed, seem to be worked and treated alongside the animal bones. I was saying that they respectfully treated the human skulls and the animal bones in the same sort of context 14,600 years ago. And then that's Paleolithic. And then we looked at the Mesolithic in regards to Cheddar Man. That's why we're doing it twice. But I needed to do him again because whilst we're looking at Hermitage last week and the axe, we mentioned the axe last week, and that's why we did the axe now, or an adze, they described it as an adze buried with one of the cremational burials at Hermitage along the River Shannon in Ireland, along the west coast of Ireland. I wanted to make a comparison and say basically we've got cremation burials in the Mesolithic period in Ireland, and then we go hundreds of miles away and we go to Cheddar Gorge and we got this burial laid out, which is great. So we got two different burial traditions, one cremation, one actually inhumation burial. So this is why I wanted to do this, and what I am going to do as well, I've my lovely one of my lovely students, Henry, because Margaret, you're one of my lovely students as well, and so is everybody else. But one of my lovely, because if I don't say this now, Margaret's going to get upset. So Henry, one of my lovely students in the other class, he said to me, he said, look at these articles of the week because he's from Ireland. So I got these on my phone and I want to read them out, but not yet because we'll do that after Cheddar Man. So I'm going to get rid of them now. So I'm geared up, and also I've also got something else from Scotland that I wanted to do. So this is why I want to crack on. So what we're going to do, I'm going to try and get some Cheddar Man images up. We're very aware of these next images, and screen and start now. Right, and where are we? Look at that skull. There's the Cheddar Man skull. Now, I wanted to do this is just chuck the stuff out that you know, and a little bit more of an analytical thing, and hopefully that'll work. So you can learn something that you may not have come across before. So Cheddar Man, human male skeletal remains from Goff's Cave, Cheddar Gorge, Somerset. So we know where Cheddar Gorge is. It's down there in Somerset. It's a thriving site of both Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and some later archaeology. The date of this skull varies. So if I sort of tenderly put it around the same, when I say dates are not really important, if I say this is around the same time that we're looking at the stuff in Ireland, right, give or take a few hundred years, right? So we got dates for this ranging at least to about 9,100 years ago. So it puts it clearly in the clearly in the Mesolithic period, right? One thing that we may not have focused on last time was the fact that they do believe now that this individual died a violent death. Now, because when we look at the skull, a large lesion is to be found just above the skull's right orbital, right? So if we're a lesion, so if we go back to the other image, not that I can work this out, there on the left there, so that's the right orbital, isn't it? So there, that big lesion there, damage there you go. So there it is, so you can see it. Suggests that the man may have been suffering from a bone infection. So that looks so, or it was an early form of leprosy, which would be daring and probably impossible for me to even say that, but with leprosy, it's got the same sort of effect that it eats into the bone, and so the bone infection. So it's saying possibly that the violent death is sort of, it's just trying to work out what they mean by the word violent death. But anyway, I'm not going to go on to that, but obviously we got that there that would have caused a lot of pain, and that would have been pustulely oozing all the time. That would have been oozing 24/7, right? So person may have dealt with the problem, don't know. So the interesting thing about this body was it was excavated in 1903, right? It was found on a stone shelf within the Goths cave. The remains are kept by London's Natural History Museum. There's a copy at Cheddar Gorge. There's actually two copies. There's one in the museum at Cheddar Gorge, the Bone Museum at Cheddar Gorge, and there's one actually in the cave now, the copy, and the originals in the British Museum. So analysis, now this is why I think the problem is with this set of human remains is not that it was found in 1903. It's because too much had been made on the individual's prototype. So obviously they've looked at the DNA and they've indicated that this individual is a Western European, right? Okay. Part of the hunter-gatherer population at that time, but that's a bit wide-ranging. The DNA tells us that he was lactose intolerant, which is not unusual. In fact, I found out that I'm lactose intolerant recently because I couldn't work out when I would be having Weetabix with milk, cow's milk, it was making me feel ill. I thought it was because I'm reliant here on rainwater and stuff. It was nothing to do with that. So, and my GP said, look, we can't test you for lactose intolerance. You've got to. There's no test apparently for it. Don't know. Anyway, and he said, just stop having milk, and I've stopped, and I feel well again, which is a bit. So I must have been lactose intolerant, right? So now this is the thing that I said not to get too obsessed with, right? Is this when people say that the individual from DNA was probably had light colored eyes, possibly light green, and then they say he could have had blue eyes or hazel eyes, but they were light. Right? Yeah, that's a bit of a wide range, really. That's most of us in the class. Anyway, he had dark brown or black hair. Okay, that's half of us. And dark to black skin. Well, that's none of us. Okay. Although an intermediate skin color cannot be ruled out. Oh, right. So well, okay. Right. Yeah. Nice. Love it. So I think I think one of the things with this is that we are really obsessed with the individual's skin color, and we if we sort of I wanted to avoid this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So what we're going to do, we're not going to obsess on this image, but I want to get this image that you've seen. So if we do that, and we know this image, and the problem is I do try and stay away from skin color, because I'm working in a situation where I come across people of all colors and creeds and religions and everything, right? I'm very wary of the language I should use, and me and Pete have had this conversation, and this obsession with skin color is something that we're trying to not make an issue in our modern day and age. So having a reconstruction of somebody that is clearly different skin color to us, we should take it as not as red, but as so what? And I think you probably know what I'm trying to say there. It doesn't really matter what somebody's skin color is. It really, really doesn't. Now, what we do find is that we do find, and this is an interesting thing. This is more. The next point is more interesting than hang on. The next point is more interesting than actually the person's skin color, and you can see I was a bit awkward with that because I was just trying to get my words together. This individual, this person's DNA forms 10% on average of all our British ancestry in Britain, and if I want to explain that a little bit more, not only do we, it's that mix of like 10% of our ancestry is like this in Britain, and obviously those straights and those brown eyes, lactose intolerance or lactose tolerance or whatever, a blonde skin and all these different things are all sort of within the DNA strand. But back to this individual, obviously the eye color and so on, it is very much within our DNA. However, most of us have become lactose tolerant, and we've got a light skin color, which is common in Great Britain, but not to say that one of us in this group might have 10% of their genes that could actually be traced to this individual, which is probably one of us in this group today has got the same genes and genetic makeup as this individual, whether we're white, green, blue, orange, black, or whatever. Don't care. So these genes, the one thing that we know, and it's too obvious, that obviously the genes that we see is a development of lots of migration. And we could talk about haplogroups and mitochondrial DNA and all the rest of it. But one thing I am going to say is that we do examine this individual as being part of that wave of people that had come over to Britain by at least 10,000 years ago. And that is the typical movement of humans that have come into this country, and we continually see that wave. So you can see that this is coming across quite awkward. But what I am going to do is make this a little bit more simple for me by telling you very much of an update to what the Natural History Museum tells us about this. And they do a little bit more of a closer, gentle analysis of this individual. And okay. And all these images, I've got a big nose, right? But there are different reconstructions. That's one reconstruction. That there is another reconstruction, right? But of another woman from the Mesolithic period that you could say has similar features. But then again, I could say that all of us has similar features. This was actually, now, I have not said this before, but you can see the lesion there. That is an earlier reconstruction of Cheddar Man. What I would like to see, going back on my notes, is a reconstruction of this person's skin color between the two tones. And I'm gonna not be awkward saying that, because it would probably rest. That doesn't look right as a reconstruction of Cheddar Man, and that doesn't look right as a reconstruction of Cheddar Man.
Carl,
So if we want, yeah, go, let say something. Go on.
how do they know what his skin color was?
From the DNA sequencing.
That tells you what the skin color is.
Yes.
Does it?
Yes. Well, right. Basically, there are millions of strands of our DNA whizzing around, right? And within those strands, it tells you whether we spoke, you know, what color skin care we had, what diseases we're prone to have, whether we've got lactose tolerance or intolerance, you know, what sort of what the DNA sort of tells us about links between other primates, and all these other things. Do you know, it's quite strange to tell us that the DNA tells us if we could articulate, and all these wonderful things are coming out about DNA. So what they do, what they might do, and tell me if I'm wrong here, what they might do is they might look at a DNA sequencing of Picasso and Van Gogh, and some of the DNA strands would tell us that those people are preconceived to be artists, right? But I'm going to pick on Margaret. Are you any good at art, Margaret?
I dabble a bit.
But let's not be critical. Are you as good as Picasso or Van Gogh?
I'm different.
But you've got you're saying
I've got an artistic bent.
So you've got a predisposition.
Yeah, I would say
so. Therefore, you've got a similar DNA strand that Picasso and Van Gogh have got. Right. I'm not very artistic.
Right.
So I'm different from you. So it's all these sort of DNA strands. But can you actually see there's something wrong with that reconstruction?
Which one am I looking at? The one on
the on the left.
Well, it looks very it looks more female, actually.
Forget the female thing. Right, where's the lesion on? Where's the lesion?
The lesion.
Where's the lesion? There is no lesion.
No.
There is absolutely no lesion there. When in fact, that one has a lesion. So there's me thinking that one looks more like a medieval lord. Yeah, that's got a lesion, right? Anyway, so what the Natural History Museum do? They round this up as I do to 10,000 years ago, and it's not. They say it's the oldest burial, but to define what a burial is, because having a cremation is a burial, except it's burnt bone rather than the body laid out as in inhumation. So the biggest surprise with this body is that this represents some of the earliest sort of portrayal of our ancient ancestors. Now, talking about portrayals and back to this whole thing, right? What I'm going to do is actually read out what this says. Until recently, it was always assumed that humans quickly adapted to have paler skin after entering Europe about 45,000 years ago. Pale skin is better at absorbing UV light and helps humans avoid vitamin D deficiency in climates with less sunlight. Can I actually just say something obvious, right? Margaret, if you're the one in the group out of how many of us is there? 8 tonight or 7 or whatever. If you're the one in the group that has got 10% of your DNA, it's linked back to this person, Margaret, right? Why haven't you got dark skin? So the thing, right? The point is that's not a question. That's more of a statement. The reason why is that predisposed evidence to tell us that we had dark skin as deteriorated. That part of the DNA is deteriorated because
down.
And the point is what I'm trying to get at, right? Okay, if one of your strands of DNA tells us that you've got this color skin on the left, right? And now all those generations down, Margaret, you are of the same skin color as me, right? It doesn't mean to say that that predisposition of DNA tells us that 10,000 years ago, this person was brown anyway. This person could have been in the middle or white. The DNA doesn't tell us when that link indicates whether you're a certain color or not. Does that make sense? Are you reading what I'm saying?
Well, it sounds to me as if they're assuming that he was dark.
Because obviously, yeah, yeah, but no, we've got to say this scientifically, right?
Yeah.
I got to say it in a scientific way. The DNA tells us that he was that skin color at one point, right? Yeah.
If you say so, yeah.
No, that's what we're going to say. That's what the science tells us, right?
Okay, yeah.
But how do we know that predisposition to be that skin color hadn't already died out 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 years earlier, right? And the reason why this is very dodgy for me to talk in this way, it's the Michael Jackson scenario, isn't it? Where 1 minute you could be one skin color and the next minute you can be another skin color, right? I've got to say that neither being white or black is any advantage, and it doesn't mean a fig. Had to say that.
Well, my husband had a Mediterranean skin. He was English, but yeah. His ancestry was Spanish. And right. In the summer, he was that color. He was very, very dark, black hair.
Right. Right. So, but going back to this, until recently, it was assumed, obviously, 45,000 years ago, people already had paler skin. But going back to this, if we want to believe this, who's to say that? Here we go. However, Cheddar Man has the genetic markers. It's markers. It's the DNA sequencing of skin pigment usually associated with sub-Saharan Africa. But I'm going to argue, how do we know that this pigment hadn't have already deteriorated in the DNA, therefore indicating this person was completely a different skin color than either of those examples? So it's the same scenario. You get a dark-skinned dad and a white-skinned woman, right? You have a dark-skinned child, and then another generation you have a white-skinned child, and then another generation is half-caste, right? It doesn't really matter. But what we are talking about is continuous evolution of the hominids that we see on the planet, right? And this is why I'm saying that skin color is really not relevant. So what they're then saying is that these DNA markers are consistent with a number of other DNA markers of other individuals found in other sites, such as the ones that we've seen in Italy, Croatia, such as the ones that Portugal and elsewhere in Ireland. So, right now, the point that the British point the Natural History Museum make. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this. The Natural History Museum say he is just one person. I would say that it might. And the other thing, what I am going to say is what I've already said, is that there might have been a mixture of skin colours wandering around Britain, right? And I will feel happier saying that, right? As cosmopolitan as today as it was back then, right? That sits better with me, right? Not the following statement from the Natural History Museum saying, but also indicative of the population of Europe at the time. I would disagree, because I would say there was a mixture, and I would sit easier with that. They had dark skin, and most of them had pale-coloured eyes. Right. Okay, is that what the DNA tells us with all the examples? Most of them. There you go, most, so not all of them. So I'm right in the first place. Either blue or green and dark brown hair. Cheddar Man subverts people's expectations of what kinds of genetic traits go together. I say it's a mixture. It's always a mixture, because that's how we've evolved, isn't it? When we look at Neanderthal, and we look at Homo sapiens sapien and Denisovian and so on. It seems that pale eyes entered Europe long before pale skin or blonde hair, which didn't come along until after the arrival of farming. I'm going to move on from that. We're reminded that you can't make assumptions about what people looked like in the past based on what people look like in the present. I would agree with that, big tick, completely agree. And that the pairings of features we are used to seeing today aren't something that's fixed. Completely agree with that. What a brilliant statement. We're going to read that out again. Completely agree. And that the pairings of features we are used to seeing today aren't something that's fixed. And I say that that's my mindset. Okay, nothing's fixed. Now, let's talk about, we talked about the skin color and the eyes and all the rest of it. This individual, who was this individual? He was 166 centimeters tall and died in his 20s, right? Now, that's probably that's shorter than me, isn't it? His skeleton, as we know, was uncovered, became a tourist attraction. Now, this is really interesting. When he was found, there were claims that Cheddar Man was the long-sought earliest Englishman, with exaggerated dates of that he could have been up to 80,000 years old. But obviously the radiocarbon dates take him no more than 10,000 years old, more like 9,100 years old. His skeleton, right, so if we look at the skeletal remains, there we go. His skeletal remains shows a narrow pelvis shape. Maybe that's because he was short in stature. It's uncertain whether a hole in his forehead was from an infection or from damage at the time of excavation. Well, no. What the hell? Heck, I'm an I know the answer to this straight away. That's not damage in an archaeological excavation. You can see there the structure of how this is formed to give. No, that statement's wrong. It is an infection. That's an infection. Like all of the humans across Europe at the time, Cheddar Man was lactose intolerant, whereas some people today are lactose tolerant. Now, I think we should. This again. This next statement is really, really important. At the time Cheddar Man was alive, Britain was attached to continental Europe. Tick. And the landscape was becoming densely forested. We would agree with that, surely. What I'm going to use is the word microclimate. Now, I don't make enough of this. I don't make enough of the word. I don't make enough of the word microclimate. Pete will tell you if you go to Cornwall, there's certain parts of Cornwall that are clearly growing things that should grow in Crete. Right? You have microclimates. There's microclimates in Wales. When it's the winter, you get valleys that look north, and it can be 9 or 20 degrees minus, when other places it's 5 or 10 degrees centigrade, right? So you've got microclimates, and I would say that the concentration of archaeological evidence at places like Creswell Crags, this is a guess, and Cheddar Gorge and other localities are due to the fact that there's microclimates. So that's why we've got concentrations. But I'm thinking more in a Paleolithic context, but I'm thinking also that our landscape worked very differently than it works today. Think tropical rainforest, loads of trees, landscape works differently. Now, this is rather interesting. Cheddar Man belonged to a group of people who are mainly hunter-gatherers. I like the word mainly because we're discussing this quite widely about people sedentary settled in localities. They were hunting game as well as gathering seeds and nuts and living quite complex lives. We can agree with that completely. In addition to seeds and nuts, his diet would have consisted of red deer. We've got evidence of that. Auroch, along with shellfish, we've got limpets. And also, we've also got in the examples that we've got from other parts of Europe, where we got from the calcus on the teeth, that we've actually got wild grains. You know, we've got wheat. You know, we've got evidence of wheat. So, you know, even though some of the evidence that we're seeing the other animals, none of what we're saying about auroch and red deer was actually found directly with Cheddar Man because he's on a shelf. But we know around him there's all this sort of rich cultural life. Now, there's one thing that can be said. When we look at Baldner Cliff 11,000 years ago, and we look at Star Car, the evidence there tells us that there is settlement going on. So this guy was within a landscape of very, very intriguing, complex systems, which very much varied. Now, something just occurred to me. Something very much occurred to me. I don't think that we can really. Let's just change this image a minute. Hang on. There's something very important I've got to say, which is more relevant. So if we, let's just get another little bit of a image. Buried within a shelf on the rock, which is there. Okay, that's on a shelf. So you look at it. You're looking from above there, which is not really an image of. That's just a bit confusing. That one. That's not the profile you would see him. What the hell that image was there? It was very strange. Which one was I? Right. Right. You can see that it's a bit of a shelf, can't you? Sort of there. That's below. It's a bit up. It's a bit of a shelf. So you can see that. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is that I don't think we in Britain can have any understanding of what the Mesolithic world was like. Because if I suddenly turned up in Margaret's house, there wouldn't be much difference from me turning up at my parents' house, or me staying in a bed and breakfast on Orkney, or me going and staying in Ireland, or me staying in Peter's house, or whatever, right? So in other words, what we are saying is that the world back then, no, start again. The world today is very similar, right? We can go to Australia and live in Sydney, or we can go to New York. It's all similar. There are bits of the planet, which are very different. But what I am going to say is there's too much similarity within our lives today. And I don't think that we can get a true grasp of the differences in complex systems. The Mesolithic Britain is far more different and diverse and complex than society is today. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I am saying. So it's an unusual cave burial. There we go. Most of the Mesolithic human remains that date to this period are found within cave contexts, but not the examples at Hermitage in Ireland, which are cremation burials out in the open. Right. So so what we have got is that near where Cheddar Man was found in Avalon's Hole, they found the remains of 50 odd individuals, which are deposited over 200 years, which I know we've mentioned before. That's within the Cheddar Gorge sort of world, and that's a cemetery. That's a cemetery of burials, but this one seemed to be quite individual, quite unusual, and he's buried alone, and the body's intact. And the interesting thing is, this body was found very much like it is now. I know that's difficult for us to cope with. It wasn't really buried, and I remember saying that. So you've got the sediment around him, but he's very much exposed. And the point is, here we go. This is the point, right? I'm going to read this out. He was recovered from sediment. There you go, the stuff around him, but he wasn't completely covered. Get on to the sentence. But it wasn't clear whether he had been buried or just covered in sediment over time by natural mineral deposits in the cave. So what we're saying is that I don't believe he was ever covered in anything. He was lying on a bed of something, right? And I'm gonna you know, we've suddenly found out. I'm going to tell you something a minute, and you'll understand my context. I'm just going to keep that going. Right, we've been having our cockerels killed by a bird of prey around here. An absolutely huge. We've got some kind of an eagle living around here, right? And it's killing our cockerels, right? So this morning I went out and one of our cockerels was dead, and there was loads of feathers everywhere, and the cockerel was alongside, and it had been picked to bits, right? And we thought it was a fox, but it wasn't. I saw this huge bird flying away, right? And a few weeks earlier, I had another bird, another cockerel that I just put in our cemetery here of animals, and I put a turf on top of it, right? And you know, I went to bury it because obviously I don't know, I usually bury my animals straight away, but for some reason this was missed. And one thing I found is that the body had already rotted quite a lot and was already disarticulated, and that was sort of more or less lying out in the open with a turf on top of it, right? So what I'm trying to say is whatever factors there were with this body that's been there for 10,000 years, nothing's disturbed it. And I find this really difficult. I find a struggle to understand why the body is not decayed or disarticulated. It's everything's there. This is in a very fine state of preservation for a body that's just been left there. But we are reminded that not lots of things live in caves, but it's not totally inaccessible for little mice and rats to get up there. They could just climb up the rock. So it's a very difficult thing to work out. It's a very special burial. Oh, should we be calling it a burial? It's not a burial, is it? It's lying there. It's not buried in anything. That's something. So he could have been special, or he may just have curled up and died there. A bit like Otzi the Iceman. Interesting that. You know, he must, you know, it's not the only time that we've seen in history that we get sets of human beings just found in places. Otzi the Iceman, And when we look at Chepstow, the Roman site in the 400s, we see human remains in drains where people have gone into drains and just died. Yes, just died, because you can't sort of get a full body and just chuck it in a drain, right? In a vertical drain, right? So the person must have crawled in there and just dropped dead, right? So we can't always assume that people are buried. According to several Victorian accounts, a large quantities of bone, teeth of extinct animals, flint knives, and bone instruments were found within this landscape. In and around this body, down below and around. But all that stuff was lost. We lost it all. But we didn't lose him. And it's believed that some of the other evidence from this individual, some of the other evidence associated with this individual could have told us a little bit more, but that was all lost. But the body was intact because it's isolated. And the other thing as well is, if the body was buried in the ground, we may not have found it, because it may have been destroyed by other activity. Ancient DNA doesn't necessarily mean that the specimen you're working with is thousands of years old. It just means, and they're saying that obviously if you get, you don't necessarily need some really old to get DNA out of it, but what they're saying is that it's a possibility that some of the DNA has been contaminated as well. So we're not going to get a complete DNA sample from the extract of this individual, other than from their teeth, which we've got to get strontium and other stuff as well. The consistently cool conditions of Goff's Cave and layers of natural mineral deposits both help preserve cheddar man, but also the DNA to a degree that we're able to get as a picture. To extract ancient DNA from a human or animal, what you're looking for is a dense bone which might have protected the DNA inside it as much as possible. So if we can go back on those statements there about the DNA, right, we're saying, right, the body's been left out. Some of the microorganisms may have started to eat away and the DNA become contaminated, right? But that's going to more happen in the ground where it's actually been buried physically in soil. So by being exposed by this, maybe because of the state of preservation, this body may have decayed over such a long period of time that in a way the DNA was protected. We used to use leg bones or teeth as the thick bone and enamel keep DNA quite intact. But in the last 2 years, we've shifted to using the inner ear bone, which is the densest bone in the human body. So that's where we're going to get that. However, it isn't a golden egg. You can still fail to retrieve useful DNA, but if the body was deposited in a good environment, which this one is, in an unusual environment, whereas we see in caves where there's a secure temperature of roughly about 12.5 or 11.5 degrees C. The Petraeus bone is a good place to actually try and get some of the DNA that you actually need. So obviously the sequencing, and when in many ways this individual is like the defining moment of trying to understand the genomes, the signature. We had a lot of genetic data from this individual, but you have to kind of know what you're looking for. So they've recreated, they've looked at the DNA, they tested it, they've compared it, look at the physical traits, and they had helpfully listed the markers they used to come up with their assessments. We were able to send that list of markers to other people to sort of, basically it's like 3 ring samples. Basically you look at one person's DNA, and you know that one person's this and that, and then you think, right, we've got that there, that thing that we just discussed is similar to this. So we can work out what all those sort of strands mean. So we do have the reconstruction, which we've actually seen. And one thing that we are going to say, just before we get to the end of this today, and I want to say something as well. So if we go back and we go, oh God, we don't want that one. Let's. I do like that one on the right with the lesion. Right, we got the blue eyes there, haven't we? Dark hair, good. Individual in their 20s, whatever. The artist took measurements of the skeleton, scanned the skull, and the 3D printed a base for their model. Do you know what, guys? I know someone that's got a 3D printer and he'll do anything, right? So it's not very difficult to do 3D printing these days. Of course, facial reconstruction is part art and part science, right? But there are some standards of how thick the tissue is in different regions of people's faces so that you can use these conventions to develop the morphology of the face. Oh, yeah, that's one thing that we didn't explain. So obviously, you find the bone and you can estimate the height of skin and the muscle for that area to do the facial reconstruction. The morphology is really similar from across the range. So obviously, just final thing that sort of, let's make this bold statement and sort of more or less call it a day on Cheddar Man. And I've really gone, I've got a full hour on that now. So are you related to Cheddar Man? We say Margaret is without even knowing it. Modern day British people share approximately 10% of their genetic ancestry with the European population to which Cheddar Man belonged, but they aren't direct descendants. Current thinking is that Mesolithic population that Cheddar Man belonged to was mostly replaced by farmers that migrated into Britain later. I don't go with that at all. So what you can do, oh, right. I didn't know this, that Longleat Estate owns Cheddar Gorge. The body is still on loan for the Longleat Estate at the Natural History Museum. Oh God, I'm knackered now. So I'm going to, what did I say? Yeah, we're gonna have a break. So obviously the session after this isn't going to be as long. So I might run across and yeah, to be honest with you, I wanted to change that. Next week we can be in my house that I'm building. So you can have a look at that. I'm trying to get all the flooring in. And it seems to be the tradition now. Most people are actually building houses, putting the flooring in first, rather than the roof space. So I'm ahead of the game. Right, so Margaret, any questions from you, darling?
Well, I guess he would have been amongst those first people that were in Britain after the Ice Age. Can they tell from his DNA? Sorry.
Right. What I'm going to say is that there are people that were still here from previous periods. And I'm going to say that he's part of one of those waves. So he's not replacing those people. He's becoming integrated with those people. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something that's just sort of totally postulated. Right. This individual might have been a completely different skin color when I came over. May have been a white skin color, right? And that person's parents come across somebody who had dark skin. And then the offspring was dark.
Yeah.
And then their offspring could have been white. The thing is, this thing about skin color is not really relevant. I don't think it is. And it's very derogatory, the skin color argument anyway. It's sort of, but I would say that what we've got to look at is a point I'm going to make after the break. Because what we've got is evidence in Ireland of people going back 33,000 years ago, right? And the cremational stuff that we've already seen is a cremational skill that's been developed in Ireland that may have been there for thousands of years. And I think it's very dangerous to say, that there were waves of people coming over here killing everybody. That's absolute nonsense. It's absolutely so pants. It makes no sense. The Germans did try to eradicate the Jewish population, the Gypsy population, Slavic population across the whole of Europe, right? With an industrial means of doing so, they didn't manage to do it, right? Even people hid and managed to get away from them. We've got bloody woodland everywhere. We're not going to be able to wipe everybody out, even if we tried. I tell you what we're going to do, Margaret, right? We're going to go back in time, right? We're going to wipe out all those people that were already here, right? Well, we're not going to be able to do it. It's impossible.
Well, I know there were hominids here 400,000 years ago. And so there have been people coming and going for an awfully long time. But I think the populations would have still been mixed at the time that Cheddar Man was here. I just wonder if they can see from his DNA where his mother and father came from, if they were from that area, or if they had travelled across from Europe, which we were still connected to.
Yeah, this is the thing, or maybe they evolved on Doggerland Bite, which no longer exists.
Did you say Boggerland?
You could say Boggerland Bite, Doggerland Bite. Yeah. So you know, you could. The thing is, right, here we go. Cheddar Man's Y DNA belonged to an ancient branch, and basically they're talking about sort of different strains of people coming over from Europe, but trying to work out you know, the mitochondrial DNA and all these other things, the X and Y DNA. That's what they say, the X and Y. I haven't got my DNA head on. We've got X and Y, and basically there's combinations of that which tell us our parentage. But obviously, you know, again, this is another complicated matter.
But they reckon he was one of about 12,000 population, so there was quite a lot of people here then.
Well, you know, when we're talking about population figures, I think it's much bigger than that, lovely. That's what I'm saying. So okay then. Drina.
No questions. No.
Who else? Peter.
No questions from me.
My God, you lot are quiet tonight. It's like bloody Mary Celeste. Andy.
No questions, thanks.
What a boring bunch. David.
No, thank you.
Oh, come on, right. The saving grace. We've had Margaret gassing now. Let's have the lady herself. Go on. You know you want to say something, Anne.
Yes, I do.
Well, there you go. Thank you for saving the night.
No, it's really that DNA is what can I say? It changes, or our whole beings change as a result of survival of the fittest. It's another aspect of DNA. And if we were living in a thick forest, and it may, and also like they wouldn't be getting so much vitamin D if they've got dark skin. And you also said when finding the skeleton, there were diseases and things about, and you wonder whether not getting enough vitamin D would have affected the number of people. It just changed the numbers. It wouldn't have done anything else, but that would have made people more sick if they've got dark skin, if they weren't getting enough vitamin D.
You know, this is why I think this sort of skin color argument is just sort of, it's not relevant.
I'm not. I mean, I'm like you. Doesn't matter what colour anybody is. I'm very. They're all the same, but as I say, there is that difference of the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
And the need for different, vitamins and things, and they do need vitamin D is a vital one. It's one of the ones which can really cause a lot of illness if you're not getting it.
Yeah, do you know, I completely agree with you. It's just that, doing Cheddar Man is a very awkward thing to do. But if you look at the other stuff that Cheddar Man tells us, where he was within that landscape and sort of who he interacted with, what tools he used, what type of things he ate, the idea, the burial context and all the rest of it. We've said nothing really about the burial. We really have not said anything about his burial at all. And I think the importance of his burial hasn't been discussed enough. We haven't used the word ritual, and we haven't used the word leader, and we haven't used the word special too much. And the reason why we haven't sort of said, oh, this person was like the head of the community and so on too much, is because it's not what we think of in the Mesolithic period. We think the Mesolithic period was hard. Everyone had to work as a group, and to have people that were superior to everybody else and you had to support them was like an anathema. You couldn't do it. But for some reason, this person is buried in the way they're buried. And they're not buried, are they? They're sort of exposed on a shelf. And I think hedging my bets, I would probably go between the person went up there to die. But then again, and then nobody found him again, and so on. Or maybe the person,
his injury could have killed him, couldn't it be? The injury onto his skull.
Yeah, well, yeah, he may have been in a lot of pain one day and went up there and dropped dead.
Yeah.
Margaret just said to me. But the other thing as well is what we do see at Shanandar Cave in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan, from the 1950s, is that we've got people who have been deliberately buried in the cave, and then people who have just gone in there and died. I.e., one of the people, he went in the cave and a boulder fell on his head and it killed him, and he just died where he was.
Yeah.
Right. So we can't always think that people are deliberately buried all the time. There is such thing as people being accidentally buried.
Strange that he laid undiscovered for 10,000 years, though, isn't it?
Maybe nobody knew he was there.
Well, clearly not. But you'd have thought animals would have disturbed the bones.
No, that is the point. They didn't. And maybe the marker to tell us that he just went up there and died, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is actually what. Okay, so say for example, we've got a loved one, and we like put them on a shelf in a cave, and we just laid them out, and we'd be curious. Well, I know it's a bit morbid, but we'd be curious, and we'd say, well, I tell you what, if we leave it a year, that all their body will have rotted down, and we can go up there and see them, and then we can like move the bones and stuff around. Like, nobody's done that, right? That hasn't happened, and you've got to ask the question, why hasn't that happened?
I know. Is it very remote? I forgot to ask where it was exactly.
Oh God, hang on.
I can't remember. You did go through it with us ages ago.
It's in the gorge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, where exactly was he in? No, you're asking the question, where exactly was he?
He wasn't on the floor level, was he? He was up on the side, and he was buried under sediment.
So he was under sediment.
No, he was no. if we go back to that image, right, there wasn't much sediment on him.
But would there have been at some time, and maybe the weather's...
Yeah, no, this is the point. What Andy said, there was bits of sediment around him, but he wasn't completely covered in that context.
But it might have been at some point.
Yeah, this is the point. Was he completely covered? And
With
the
little
problem
or no
is,
weather within the cave.
Yeah,
there is no weather in the cave.
I thought we'd looked at him. I might be getting mixed up with another one, but we looked at one where, because he was on a ledge, he was away from flowing water that had run through the cave and possibly disturbed other bits and pieces. But because it was excavated so long ago, it's difficult. And of course, they've lost everything.
Andy's right. Andy's completely right, because it was excavated long ago. And I can't remember. I'm just trying to think. He's not exactly near the entrance. He was set back in there. I'm sure. I haven't got that detail.
Was it that cave that they found other skulls and they wondered if there had been cannibals?
Yeah, that's right. It's the same cave.
Ah, right.
As I said, that's why the comparison. That's why we did the comparison. So, Andy, maybe you could look that up with the exact location where he is in the cave. But if we go, what I think what we need to do is just go back to that image where we saw him in the cave. And actually, what I'm going to do, I don't want to sort of, say that Andy's completely wrong, right? What I'm going to do is argue why we've got a problem with the burial. And right. That is actually, the body is actually on a shelf, right? So the body is actually on a shelf. Now, my understanding is that the body was exposed, but there's sediment around the body. That's my understanding. And that's basically a reconstruction of how the body was found. Now, I'm going to go
in a semi-prone position if he's laying on his side.
Yeah.
Almost in a fetal position, isn't he?
Yeah.
He looks comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah, why not?
Well, perhaps he just laid himself there then. If it was a burial, they would lay him out straight, wouldn't they?
Well, not necessarily, but all I'm going to say, and the other thing as well is, right, if you looked at the other image where we saw it earlier on, you could see that it was like on a bit of a slope, so it wouldn't have been easy to put the body up there in the first place. I'm not sure, but I'm more for the argument that the individual has deliberately put himself there and died of natural causes. That's what I'm for.
I think
that's the way it looks, as if he himself went there and laid in a comfortable position.
Yeah,
because it's kind of a fetal position, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And nobody knew. And the other thing as well is, right, because this was before modern archaeological excavation, right? We can't be 100% sure the way the person was lying. Now, I'll give you. Oh God, what was it now? Hang on, I get this in my head. There was a body recently found. Hang on, it's coming. Yeah, the body found in Africa, right, of a child dating over 70,000 years ago in Kenya. They found the remains of the body. It was a burial, and what they did, they put plaster of Paris around the body, right, and lifted the whole thing. So when they got it back to the laboratory, they were able to take the plaster of Paris off, and the body was in the same state as it was in the cave, but they were able to map it and plan it with modern science to understand how the body was laying completely. Well, they couldn't have done it with this in 1903.
No.
I knew this subject. I knew this would, when we did the Hermitage and I said we're going to do the two of them, I knew there was no way we're going to do the two. Right. So what I'm going to do is I do want to finish at a sensible time tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run and get something to drink, and when I get back, we're going to crack on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the next bit is going to be looking at some articles. So I'm going to be I'm going to be sort of exploring these articles of the week that have been sent to me via Henry, which I've got on here. That's what I want to do. And that's where we're going to be. Right. So, right. 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. Let's just have a break. A short break, and I'm going to go and get something. Okay. I'll speak to you in a minute. Okay. I'm going to go and get my doodah. Right. Drink a pen. Good. Right. Crack on, folks. Talk about the cricket. Tell you about the cricket match you went to last week.
Rather watch paint dry.
But the thing is, Anne was bowled over by the cricket. Right, I will see you in a mo. Mo. What is the time? Okay, see you in a minute. Right, glasses. Well, somebody say something. Talk. Drina, talk about the rugby match you saw the other week.
That's why I'm not saying it.
It's raining quite nicely out here at the moment anyway.
It's cold here. I'm cold.
It's not cold. I must admit, it's not really cold, but
Yeah.
certainly tipping down outside. I know I've just had 2 cameras fitted. One out the back on the back garden and one out the front on the drive. And I've been watching that while we've been listening to Carl.
Is that for security?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah. It will actually record on motion. When motion close to the door, it will start to record, I believe, yeah. Saw a cat cross the garden. That was exciting.
Well, let's
There's
hope
various cars going up
much
and down
more
the road.
exciting than that if it was somebody with a balaclava on or something.
Yeah. And there's someone walking down there. Oh, they've got an umbrella.
It don't look like it's raining here from what I can see of it. Not on this window anyway.
It's just that it's quiet, it's silent, so as if it wasn't, it's quite a noisy road. When we moved here, it was a very quiet little road which went into a country, was part of a country lane.
Yeah.
And then they built a slip road to the docks from the top road in Barry down onto towards the docks, and opened this road up into it. And since then, it's been a really noisy one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame.
It is. They spoiled it really.
It seems unfortunate that as time goes on,
Yeah.
it always goes that way. Worse.
Yeah.
Things generally don't improve in terms of buildings.
No. Like I said, it was a nice, quiet little country road, and now it's a busy main road.
Yeah.
And a school at each end, or 2 schools.
Yeah.
So at certain parts of the day, it's
yeah.
because children don't walk to school anymore. They have to be taken by car.
That's the trouble, isn't it? Mind you, I think part of the trouble with why that's happened is when comprehensive started, the schools got enormous. So children had to travel a lot further, didn't they? When you go into a school of 2,000 instead of about 500, makes a difference.
My girls preferred to walk.
That's what seems to change it. Yes, I always walk to school, but as I say, things have changed, I think.
Yeah. My first school I went to was 3.5 miles, a country road. And we walked there to start with. And then after the war, at the end of the war, they ran a bus. We could actually get a bus at Tuppence Halfpenny, I think it was.
I can remember I had to walk a mile to the bus stop. This was when I was about 9. and then get the bus. It was 5 miles to my school. And coming back one night, it was a pea super. It was a fog. Oh, it would have been about 1957, 58. And the bus stopped. It couldn't go any further. And we had to walk. We couldn't see a hand in front of us. The fog was so thick. And we had to hold hands and just more or less guess the way. And my parents were waiting for me at the bus stop, absolutely terrified. It took hours. So thank God we don't have those anymore.
When we first went to school, we had to pass through an American Army checkpoint. And they would stop us with their rifles pointed at us. We would have to show our identity cards. And then they'd give us sweets and chocolate and chewing gum and send us on the way to school.
I used to walk through a park, one of Birmingham's big, my road was sort of at the end of this park. At the end of the road, there was this big park. And I used to walk through that to school. So it was quite a pleasant walk, really. It was a fairly long way, but it was quite a nice walk to go.
Yeah, Lady Moore was quite a large American transit camp. And there was the local quarry, they dumped all their rubbish. And we would go and collect rubbish that the Yanks had thrown in there. And as a boy of 8, I had 200 rounds of 303 ammunition. Right. And I used to pull the bullets out and set fire to the cordite. And I think now what a child of 8 would do with that.
What did your dad say about that?
Oh dear. I kept all that secret. I didn't. The parents
I didn't mention
it
to Dad. No, I can believe it.
Why did we call them Yanks?
That's a good question. Yankee Doodle Dandy was.
I've heard of Yankee Doodle Dandy, but I just wondered why we called them Yanks.
I mean, they used to call the British pommies, didn't they?
Yeah, well, yes.
You read all these nicknames, I suppose.
Or limeys, were we limeys? Who called us
Limeys,
limeys? Was that the Australians?
Yeah, that's because we had lime in our lager. Lager and lime we ate.
No, wasn't it because they had limes to stop scurvy on the ships?
Oh, yes, we had lime. Well, you had orange and, lemon and lime to stop scurvy.
The Americans called us limeys. The Aussies call us poms.
Poms, yeah. But why did we call the Americans Yanks?
Good question.
I'm not sure. We did, but I'm not sure.
No.
Let's say we had a lot of them around us, and they stopped us when we were on our way to school and things like that. But
yeah, well, I was on an archaeological excavation once, and this Australian come past, and I was on the excavation. He said, "What are you doing, digger?" and then there was this woman working next to me. Said, "Oh, what's your name, Sheila?" She said, "That's my name." Right. On that note, right. Sorry about that. That was just really bad. Okay, let's crack on. So we're gonna, yeah. Right. Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, don't I look good? Yeah. Good. What?
What?
Shut up, you. What does it mean? It's almost as if me and Drina could do one of those dodgy porn movies from the 1970s from 2 different rooms, and it'd be like Drina's like in a dark. I think Drina's trying to keep her electricity bills down.
So David.
Yeah.
David's in the dark.
Yeah, David's been in the dark since he started these classes. Yeah, and Andy said sometime mention that you can all go back to his place and do a class as long as Anne brings the cakes. So anyway, right, let's crack on. Oh, anyway, this is one thing. Right, hang on a minute. Who are we missing tonight? So there's
Claire,
Roger.
Claire and Roger.
Oh, and Sandra.
And Sandra.
Yeah.
Like I say, Sandra's not very well. She rang me today and said she's sorry she couldn't come tonight. But that she'd fallen over and was on the floor for something like 13 hours.
Oh dear.
She got an alarm thing on her wrist, and she thought she'd pressed it, but she obviously didn't press it strong enough.
No. So she didn't get any help come?
No.
No. Oh dear, poor Sandra.
Bloody hell.
So worry when you live on your own, isn't it, as you're getting older?
Oh, nothing wrong with being on your own. You've got nobody to tell you what to do.
I know, but if I pop my clogs, nobody would know for ages, and the dog would eat me.
Well, at least the dog would have a good feed, and you wouldn't know any different.
Oh, shut up, you guys! I've got to crack on. Right, okay. Right. So let's just do. Okay, right. Where was I? Right. Okay. So I've kept all of these for a few weeks, and it's a little bit of research that Henry managed to do. And I've also got something else about Scottish archaeology. So I'm not going to illustrate any of these today. I'm just going to do a little bit of talking. Right. So now there's a site that I want to do in Scotland called Warren Field in Aberdeenshire. And you'll understand why I want to do Warren Field in Aberdeenshire when we go in, right? So I think this is a nice little statement. This is about Scotland, this one. So the hunter-gatherer fishers of Mesolithic Scotland did not leave behind great stone monuments like their Neolithic successors did. We should not see them as unimpressive or less clever. On the contrary, we know that they were very advanced from everything that we've been looking at. They were sophisticated human beings who observed the world around them in great detail. One archaeological discovery which demonstrates this is the unique site of Warren Field in Aberdeenshire, which may be the location of a lunar calendar. That's the lunar calendar from Warren Field. So that's what we're going to do in the next few weeks. We're going to look at that. First discovered in an aerial photograph, the site has been found to contain 12 pits that are aligned with the phases of the moon and would therefore have helped Mesolithic people to create a concept of time. This find is extraordinary as it would constitute the earliest lunar calendar known in the world, 5,000 years older than those previously known from Mesopotamia in the region that we know as Iraq. So that's a little sort of an introduction to something that I want us to cover in the next few weeks. And this one itself introduces the Irish stuff that we're going to look at briefly tonight, actually. And Pete, I need to have a chat with you afterwards because I want some more money, Pete.
More money?
I'm only kidding, Pete. I don't want any more money off you. I'm gonna have a quick chat with you at the end, Pete. So
okay, chat. Yeah, all right. We recently had an harvest moon, didn't we?
That was nice. So one thing that they've been extensively researching fields across Ireland, and they do believe, and we've mentioned this before, that lots of the early landscape of the Mesolithic period is obviously underneath those very thick layers of Irish blanket bog as temperatures deteriorated. Now, we don't know what's underneath lots of that bog in Ireland. From people talking about there's loads of gold hanging around in Ireland. There's evidence of Neolithic field systems, Bronze Age monuments, and even evidence from the Mesolithic period, which is slowly growing in quality. And the numeric information that we're getting from Ireland is truly increasing. So this was entitled An Irish Field. And what we've got is 6,000 years ago. We've got here fields on the North Mayo coast in Ireland, near the coast, which are definitely massively productive 6,000 years ago. So were they entertaining agriculture 2,000 years ago, which would make it in the Mesolithic period or even earlier? So that's a big question, which we're not going to answer tonight. So thanks to Henry, I've got these two wonderful articles of the week, and I'm going to take my time. And they're very similar, these articles, because they're about the same locality. Now, when I was umming and ahhing and saying, well, you know, this evidence that we're finding of cremation in Ireland on the west coast, not just 2 cremations, but lots more indicated, at least 4 and many more, possibly. And we said, well, you know, this evidence takes us 10,000 years ago or whatever, right? So obviously, to be able to develop this skill to cremate human remains, this must be from an earlier period as well. However, shocking is from County Cork, reindeer bone found in a Cork cave shows human activity in Ireland 33,000 years ago, at the same time as the supposed evidence of Pavilan Cave on the Gower, or whatever evidence there is on the Gower. But so what we're doing, we're saying that there's stuff going on in Ireland 33,000 years ago. Now, back to that little bit of a conversation me and Margaret were having. We didn't really get anywhere, which was fine, about this sort of thing. Well, what about these earlier people? You know, where did they go? Did they go anywhere? They remained around, but what happened was that there was less of them and they interbred with everybody else, and that's what bloody happened. This is what probably happened with the earlier populations in Ireland. And this idea, the idea that I paint of the cold glacial periods, and I'll tell it as it is, and I'm also going to say I'm wrong, right? I basically say, you know, as it gets colder, particularly 13,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, where we get like the ice, it starts to sort of warm to about 13,000 years ago, and suddenly it starts to get really cold again, right? And the idea is that anyone in Britain would have run away or lived in a cave. Well, if you've got microclimates, right, people could have hung on in bits of Ireland, sheltered from the elements, and things could have carried on. So, you know, these people there 33,000 years ago, their generations down the line may still be in people's DNA today. So let's just not lose sight of that. Bloody hell, that's got problems for Irish nationalism, hasn't it? And so therefore there is no divide in Northern Ireland. Moving on. A reindeer bone fragment uncovered in a cave containing the right, start again. A reindeer bone fragment uncovered in a cave contains a revelation set to dramatically alter the understanding of Irish human history. All of our history, because it would have been connected to Great Britain, mainland Britain, and Britain would have been connected to Europe 33,000 years ago. A bone fragment was found in Castle Pook Cave near Doneraile in North Cork, where a mammoth bone was discovered in 1972. Now, the bone, a hind leg, basically a femur of a reindeer, establishes human activity in Ireland 33,000 years ago, 20,000 years earlier than previously could ever be dreamt of and expected. And this actually dates to the 2nd of September. So that or was it? I don't know when. Yeah, it's not that old, this article. Now, lots of the evidence that they've got, the cave was excavated by a naturalist, Richard Usher, great name, Bishop Usher. You know him. He's the one who said the Earth was like 4,000 years old or whatever. But this is no relation. Richard Usher is somebody completely different. In 1904, 1912, Usher called the cave that they excavated in northern Cork the Mammoth Cave, due to the high volume of woolly mammoth remains discovered there. Now, why would woolly mammoth remains be in a cave? Well, you've seen all those Tarzan films from the 1930s, didn't you? And they would go through a cave and all the elephants would die in there, right? Maybe that's what they do. Woolly mammoths died in caves. I don't know. However, the reindeer bone bears. Oh God, this is hard reading. The reindeer bone bears chop marks consistent with butchering with a flint or stone tool. So the reindeer bone is clearly being cut by human instruments. However, it was not until the femur fragment was sent for analysis that the scientists realized the transformative potential of their discovery. So this is all being looked at now. Radiocarbon dating of the femur revealed it to be 33,000 years old. Up to now, obviously, the earliest remains is of, this is also interesting, in County Clare in Ireland, they've got the remains of a bear bone that's got signs of butchering dating to 12,500 years ago, which is the same date that we have of the cave art from Cathole Cave on the Gower, right? So I'm trying to put it all into perspective. Hang on a minute. Hang on, stop. 22, start again, 12,500 years ago. Wasn't it bloody cold then? So why are human beings butchering bears in Ireland when they're not there? They must have been there. The story of the discovery revealed to be an amazing sort of it's an amazing thing. So what they're saying is that this was the bone was only discovered. The bone was only discovered in 2008, right? And what they had done is that there was boxes and boxes of bones that were in the National Museum of Ireland, and they hadn't been looked at all. So they were being looked at in 2008. And a certain expert, Dr. Carden, set to work examining 60,000 bone fragments that were excavated from at least 11 limestone caves across Ireland from the 1800s to the 1900s. The one bone that we're talking about, the reindeer bone, tells us that humans were going to Ireland 33,000 years ago. We have butchered reindeer bones, more than them, from the 11 sites, which have very deep marks, almost like a chopping mark, made by a broad, flat tool, a flint tool or a stone tool. The radiocarbon dating results came back, and it was quite shocking. It is likely the hunter-gatherers would have followed and lived off the migrating reindeer herds to Ireland across wide expanses of lands and water bodies which are now under the sea. Yes. This research is cutting edge and very exciting as it impacts on how we view humans and animals traversing lands at the time. And obviously there's a lot more research to be done in regards to these bones. And I'm just going to double check. Right, the other article is basically the same, right? But it's slightly different. And this actually dates from April 2021. Here we go. Reindeer bones show. Headline in the newspaper: ancient hunters living in Ireland had black skin and blue eyes. Sorry. They're saying that they looked at the DNA, and they looked at the DNA, and it said that they examined DNA from various other sites in Ireland, and it showed that people in Ireland had dark skin. The first inhabitants of Ireland survived by hunting, fishing, and gathering edible plants, while bears and wolves roamed primeval forests, obviously forests in Ireland. A large influx of distinctively different people with a sort of sallow skin and dark coloured eyes happened 6,000 years ago. But obviously this doesn't help us when we're looking at the Mesolithic period. So what they're doing is they're trying to look at the genetics to understand how people are evolving and how things are changing in Ireland. And obviously the jury's out on this studying material from Ireland, but hopefully we can sort of really understand that Ireland is part of that picture of evolving, very diverse Mesolithic archaeology across the whole of the British Isles. And just one last thing I'd like to mention, and I've actually suddenly I've just been hit by a wave of exhaustion. Because I'm a fellow of the Society of Scottish Antiquaries, I get some heads up on things occasionally. And I'm going to type something in. If people are really into archaeology from Scotland, then they're going to write something on the screen, right? They need to go to a website, and it's an amazing website. I used to use it for my master's degree. Hang on, where are we? No, I don't want that. I want to scribble. I want to write this on. Right, okay. The website, we've got nothing like it in Wales, but Scotland we do. It's a website called Scarf. Right, so if you type in there, it basically is a website called Scarf, which is basically the archaeological research framework for Scotland. Scottish Archaeological Research Framework, that's what that means. And if you go on there, it's got everything you want to know about Scotland, photograph, it's got postcards, it's got excavation detail from Mesolithic period, evidence of Roman sites, medieval sites, all on their photographs is brilliant. So go on there, it's called SCARF, Scottish Archaeological Research Framework, right? National framework. So if you're really interested in it, it sort of helps you get an overview. And one thing I'd just like to quickly mention this. Yeah, basically, I had a heads up, and it basically said that this is sort of an overview of what they say about the Mesolithic period. That there's now a massive recognition that the Mesolithic period was big time in Ireland, in Scotland, and the Paleolithic was big time. So what they're saying, they're talking about Aronsay, which we looked at months ago. Another site called Lachale. They're really putting all the details that they can on this website from all excavations about lithic finds from the Mesolithic period, so we can get a map. And obviously what they're saying is that there's such a backlog of information from Mesolithic sites in Scotland that there's a damn lot more to be learnt about Scotland in the Mesolithic period than ever before. And they're saying that this is the one thing that we don't mention much of is the effects of the environment on past communities, including both long-term processes and events such as a tsunami, as well as considering the impact of the human presence upon Scotland's environment, vegetation, and population, which they're researching. What we've got to think about is that there are natural events changing Scotland, not just human events. Very important, that. And when we think about it as well, if we want to go back to the trees, if there's billions of trees in Scotland, how can a small, even if you think about a population in Scotland in the Mesolithic period 10,000 years ago, maybe 10,000 people, right, or less or more, they're not going to make much of a blunt into the trees, right? I'll give you an example of that, right? Today there are 70 million people living in Britain, right? If we all went out and cut down a tree every single day for the rest of our lives, we would still have an island full of trees. I don't know if that's exactly true, but you see my sentiment, don't you? So obviously, all of what they're doing with this research framework, and what they're doing, that they're slowly understanding caves in Scotland, other sites in Scotland, and not just looking at middens, shell middens, for example, at Romsey and so on. And they're starting looking at other areas as well, as we know, the Cairngorms, where they started to come across upland Mesolithic sites for the first time. That's where some people were living. So they're really starting to sort of push into it, and I think this is really interesting. They're starting to try and understand the relationship between what different people are like. Were the people inland different from the people who lived along the coast? And yeah, they were. Were they hunter-gatherers and all these different things? So there were different people within different lands in Scotland alone. And they're really starting to look at waterlogged and submerged sites in Scotland, again, from all periods, and including the Mesolithic period. And there's so much out there, and there's some great images of flints on here as well from Scotland. And just sort of, I'll just show you that there. Wonderful images like that. So get up there on the Scarf website, look at the images, more Mesolithic stuff, well worth a look. So on that note, I'm going to call it a day. So I want to know, we're gonna pick on Margaret again. Any questions, Margaret?
Well, I guess you talked before about these interstadial periods when we had warm periods. So I guess populations would have grown during those periods.
I'm not denying. Nobody's denying that at all. You are dead right. But what I'm saying is that was the temperature too cold for anyone to live in Britain? And I don't think it was. I think there are microclimates. I think people were able to hang on in places where, you know, I've always used that adage, haven't I? That idea from a film from the 1950s with Jules Verne. It wasn't Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was like they sent an expedition to the Arctic, and there was a little sort of green land within the Arctic surrounded by ice. And you're thinking, well, where did somebody get that idea from? It certainly wasn't Greenland they were talking about. And you think, you know, there's so much that we don't know. And I think what we need to do is have an open mind. Anything else, Margaret?
Well, we're in an interglacial period now, but an interstadial one is a shorter period, isn't it?
We have short
and I presume it would have been as warm as it is now. I don't know.
The thing is, depending on what part of the country we're thinking of, and obviously, you know, we can't. What we got to say, we can't we can't tar everybody with the same brush, and you know, people did hang on, and they were able to cope. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anyone living here today. People died every time it got a bit cold. Right. Anything else, Margaret, before I go to Andy?
No, that's it.
Thank you, Margaret. Andy?
No, it's a fascinating period how they come to all these conclusions, but I'm starting to find with some of these new ideas that they seem to be slightly contradicting themselves about how they developed. You know, like Margaret's point right at the beginning about, you know, they're needing high protein to develop the brain, but they'd already got the brain to be able to hunt the high protein. You know, so okay.
We won't go down that avenue, Andy.
No,
it'll make my lectures a bit more confusing.
Yeah, even with
no,
cheddar man,
my lectures ain't confusing at all. They make complete sense, but you know, it's just like
even cheddar man's getting confusing, isn't it? Because they started to think, well, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. You know. So.
Oh, shut up, Andy, you tart. I am
more scientific evidence. I'm sure they'll come up with a new way of analysing him next week. So.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the lesion at all in the past. We've never talked about the lesion.
I never knew about that. No.
But it's oh God, it's been there for everybody to see, you know. Like on the one reconstruction, an important lesion, which is a clearly lesion, is missing. And it's what? It don't make sense.
No.
It's always been there, Andy.
It's before he got ill. Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. He's been ill as a skeleton. Not you, Andy. Sorry. Know that. Right. Thank you for that, Andy. Margaret, Anne.
No, thank you. That's interesting again.
Right. Don't forget, Pete. I gotta have a word with you then. Anything you want to say, Andy? Pete. No, Pete. Andy's not Pete. Flipping out. I'm losing it.
Andy's
Peter.
I think people evolved due to supply and need. What was there for them to eat, and what would they need? And they followed what they needed and what was supplied. And as for hunter-gatherers, I mean, animals were hunter-gathering long before humans.
That's true. Very true. That's true. Right. Thank you for that, Pete. And what we're going to do, right? I'm going to say goodbye to David now. But we're going to ask David. David, anything you want to say before you go?
No, thank you.
Hi, David.
Okay, Dave.
Good night.
All right,
all.
David.
Uh-huh.
You never know. He
David.
might stay on. All right, David. Drina, go on, Dreen. David
You want
wants to listen to
something-
what you got to
You want
say.
something silly?
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone.
Silly, yeah.
Bollocks. My friend, he's already gone before you said it. Go.
I found out today that mermaids have white skin because they don't need the melanin because they're under the water. True.
Yeah.
That's just so racist.
Oh my God.
I did look.
but-
I did look up
Andy.
Yanks as well, and they're the origins of Yanks or Yankees isn't actually known.
Oh.
Right. Oh, I got it from, they call the Dutch Jan, and it sort of evolved from that.
Well, there was a theory that it came from a Cherokee word, but that's been disproved by the Cherokees coming forward and saying we don't have a word like that. So,
Oh, it could be the Dutch connection, couldn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's something to do with the New England people, but the earliest known recording was a British officer referring to his New England troops as Yankees. So.
Oh,
Drina,
that's
you're
not
wrong.
right.
Drina, you're completely wrong. I've proved you wrong.
Oh.
That's either a very big seahorse or a very small mermaid.
She was on a holiday.
Oh, hang on a minute. There
Yeah.
we go.
Oh, yeah.
And red
So
hair.
Yeah. That's
it-
Ariel.
Yes, it is.
Oh, there's another one.
God. That I'd never swim.
All right, then one more.
Very exotic.
God,
Ah,
you get tangled in the seaweed with that hair.
I think
absolutely.
that is seaweed hair.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up. It's braids, isn't it? It's braids.
I think they're just
How's she
making
going to
it
swing
up.
with those braids?
Yeah, they're just making it up as they're going along.
They're making it up as they get along.
Have they ever
Oh,
caught
God.
one in a fishing net?
Oh,
There-
shut up. I didn't
there-
want
there
I
is
don't
that.
even care.
There is that picture, isn't there? There is a picture of one that was supposedly turned up, but
Yeah.
I think
Caught
it's
in a
one of
fishing
those
net.
made up ones. Yeah.
Oh no,
Hey,
really?
Andy, they don't make any of this up. Shut up, Andy.
My granddaughter's a firm believer in mermaids and unicorns.
Well, unicorns are different.
Yeah, but your
Yeah.
granddaughter, 23.
Unicorns did exist.
They did, yeah, in
In Arnside,
No, in Russia,
in
Yeah.
Russia.
in prehistoric times. Yeah.
Yes,
Eh?
Mm.
I
yes.
didn't know that, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look them up. It's not quite the way we see them today. They got
No.
romanticized a little.
It's
Sure,
sturdy.
it wasn't a rhino.
No.
No.
It's a horse with a horn on its head. It really is. It's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What the hell? That's a unicorn.
Yes. But the Russians don't. I don't think they called it a unicorn. I think they called it something else.
Talking about mermaids. What gave you the right to change the subject?
When did the Gulf Stream happen?
Hey?
Last week.
The Gulf Stream.
Yeah.
When did that come into
Ooh.
being?
Well, when they decided to take the professional golfers to the Arabian Gulf.
I did see something on this a while ago. I can't remember
Yeah,
now.
because I was watching a program about the Inner Hebrides, and they have tropical plants growing.
They do.
And around the Isle of Arran, and it's all because of the Gulf Stream. And
Well,
I just thought, oh, when did that start to occur?
That's why we have sort of a warmer climate than a lot of places as well.
Yeah.
And you get up onto the entrance to the Clyde. Helensburgh has palm trees growing on the beach. So,
Yeah.
In Falmouth, they're growing bananas.
yeah.
Oh God, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Well, Carl will know all about this.
Mm.
And on Tresco in the Scilly Isles, they're growing all sorts of.
Oh yeah.
I bet it's called. It's the hints in the name.
Yeah.
Gulf, from the Gulf.
Oh, yeah.
Because over in Canada on the same latitude.
It's from the Gulf of Mexico, the circling breeze over there, over the hot ground, and coming across the Atlantic.
Yeah. Also called the
Yeah.
Grand Accumulator.
Oh, for God's sake.
Mm.
It's under threat from the ice that's going into the North Sea, and it could change it. It's a bit scary.
Yes, if it was
the day after tomorrow, just watch
exactly,
it is scary.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could very easily change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been watching Frozen Planet?
No, I've been listening to
the big glaciers disappearing into the ocean.
Mm.
It is scary.
The not so frozen planet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I can't even remember what I was doing. But anyway, on that
we haven't
note,
had a flake of snow since I bought a snow shovel 3 years ago.
Oh, wow, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. You see, you buy a snow shovel and
They don't snow.
We'll all have to get one.
I'm going to get an umbrella.
The thing is, right?
Good plan.
that bit hasn't worked.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you for a really good lecture, Carl. It was very
yeah, yeah.
It was very interesting.
Which part of it? What
What
the
was it
thing
about
about bloody
again?
mermaids at the end?
What was it about again?
And Andy suddenly changed the subject into something completely different. How the hell did we get from mermaids to a unicorn?
Because somebody said mermaids and unicorn. I wonder who that was.
Bang, my head's gone.
What are we doing next week?
Yeah.
Oh, right. What are we doing next week? It's in the diary. I want to do a subject. I want to do part 1 of Doggerland.
Okay. Good.
Oh, right.
Mermaids.
Part one of Doggerland. I think we better do it before we go into the Neolithic period. I think there's a big bit missing.
Mm.
Well, they still
Suddenly,
play
we're an
cricket out
island,
there
right?
in the summer.
I'm going to mention Boris Johnson's wonderful legacy in making us an independent nation in Europe now, but do you know what? We'll never hear about Boris Johnson ever again in British history.
Oh, don't you believe it? They're trying to get him back.
I think we will.
What?
They're regretting their decision, aren't they?
Yeah.
What do you mean they're trying to get him back? Oh, I want to know about this.
There's an argument that they put Liz Truss in, so everyone gets so fed up that they get Boris back, and there's a lot of Conservatives backing that. So, and I'm going, oh God, no.
That's right, and they can get rid of her quick because the Conservatives can do that. And
Yeah.
They like the speech that he did
she'll be
about
telling
the
them.
Queen, and they said he's a brilliant writer and orator.
No, he's a good writer. Yeah.
Mm,
He's just a liar.
Yeah.
yeah, but aren't they
Quite.
all? Aren't they all really?
They're not quite as bad as him.
No.
They said the only powerful leader
Well, if you're writing
that could fly
fiction, you
was
need to be.
Jimmy Jimmy Carter never lied, but he was a terrible president.
If you're writing fiction, you need to be a good liar.
Yeah, no, his writing in the papers is good. But yeah, you're right.
Well, you've got to give him credit for he's always looking on the bright side, isn't he? Saying, what wonderful thing
Always
you've
look
done,
on
and how
the
beautiful it's going to
bright
be in the
side of
future.
life.
So you have to look at that.
It's a bit like Trump suggesting people should drink
Bleach.
bleach to get rid
Yeah.
of COVID.
Yeah, well, it would work. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
It's a shame they didn't take him up on that. We'd have got rid of quite a lot of people, wouldn't we?
It can't have been
Some people did, I
serious.
believe, in America.
Oh, it can't have been serious, surely.
No, it was a kind of one of those kind of off the side at a press conference, off the side comments that he realized what he'd said was really stupid. What he meant was that you could, is there nothing like we could just inject like bleach? And we're going, what? But,
There we are.
Flippin' heck. You guys
Paul.
just wanted to chat, didn't you, about frigging mermaids and injecting blooming bleach, icebergs, tropical
absolutely.
bloody thingamajigs on the Hebrides,
icebergs, eh? Ooh. Oh, there's a whole story.
lettuces.
I remember sailing through them when we were going to going up to
What
Archangel,
lettuces?
Mermaids,
going through the icebergs,
right?
and out on deck with in your shirt sleeves because it wasn't cold,
No.
and that you were passing through the icebergs.
Mm.
Right, let's just start again, right? Iceberg lettuces, right? You're passing through icebergs and you've got them up your sleeves.
No, you're in your shirt sleeves.
What? Eating icebergs?
It's warm.
Yeah, eating icebergs. Yes.
But, but it's like that when you get on the top of mountains, snow, skiing and that, it gets really quite hot.
It's the only time I've had a suntan when I've been on top of a snowy mountain.
Oh, you get all bouncing off the snow. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
look over there, there's a bloody unicorn.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You see, watch out that bird of prey don't get it.
Yeah, that eagle.
Yeah. It'll be a buzzard, Carl. It'll be a buzzard. They are very big. Very big.
This was huge.
Yeah, 2 meter wingspan buzzards.
It was bloody massive.
Yeah, it'll have you if you're not careful.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot.
Put a hard hat on.
But my poor old bloody baldric.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Baldric. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Baldric might be all right. He might be a bit too big.
No, he is a bit too big. He's bloody huge.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah.
Do you know what? When I'm lying on the bloody grass, right, he jumps on my legs, right, jumps up and down, right, uses it as a frigging perch.
And nice with cranberry sauce.
Yes.
Oh,
did you know that a condor was a vulture?
No, I didn't.
no, I
I
thought it
always
was a
thought it
blooming...
was an eagle, but
pigeon.
it's a vulture.
I didn't know it
Yeah.
was. No.
Ah,
That's the biggest bird, isn't it? The condor.
the condor, yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a vulture, but there you
I
go.
thought it was an
Oh.
albatross. Albatross, come and get your albatross. Albatross.
That's because they cheat. They've got that extra bit of wing, haven't they? They have an
Mm,
extra
albatross.
joint. Yeah, they have an extra joint in their wing. So
yeah.
Wasn't that by Fleetwood Mac?
Yes,
yes, early days. Peter Green.
Right, okay. Good.
Beautiful song.
yeah.
Well, not a song because there's no
Well,
words. but,
music, lovely
Yeah.
music, very
Nice.
gentle.
nice little tune.
Yeah.
Nice little bloody tune. Oh, God.
Monkey Puzzle Blues on the other side.
Is it? Yeah, cool. What?
Monkey Puzzle Blues.
It's singles. You're probably too young to know that, Carl.
Hey, shut up. I've got a collection of bloody 12 inches and 6 inches.
Right?
Stop
Bragging
bragging.
again.
Yeah. This is why he has to stay on his own up there.
Shut up.
With his animals.
I'll tell you what happened the other day with my sheep.
Mhm.
Oh, do you want to know now?
It could do, but you're still live on YouTube, don't forget.
No, I'll tell you about I'll tell you about my experience with the sheep the other day. But I won't. You can wait till next week. Anne can ask me next week.
Was it the pretty one?
Oh, the pretty one, yeah.
Yeah, me.
Called Nikki, yeah.
Ah. Mm.
Yeah. David's missed all this, haven't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what happens if you just run off like that. You see, in a hurry.
Yeah,
It's all the juicy bits.
Yeah, he misses the juicy bits. Good old David.
Oh.
There was an article in the paper that I forgot to bring through the Gazette about that excavation looking for up on High Street, following the. I'll try and get it for next week.
Well, it's part of the conference.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah, they're bringing it up at the conference.
Good.
Quite a few interesting things, actually. Yeah, so you'll have to come.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice that.
Yeah, it's the Lake District National Park Authority website.
Yeah, I got the email. Thank you, Drina.
You got it. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
The question is, how many married male archaeologists are going to be there? Because if there's a load, then Claire will be there.
There aren't many married archaeologists. They usually get divorced because they got fed up with it because they're never there. Virtually all the ones I know are divorced now.
Okay.
Yes.
They have to be together. You do get couples, don't you? That go.
Yeah. If they're digging together, that's fine. That works. Yeah.
The odd one changes partners regularly, don't they?
Yeah.
Regularly. They've all got dirty fingernails.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for God's sake, stop it! God, I tell you what, I can't handle this more than once a week.
It's nice. It's like the nights we used to have a drink.
Are you doing it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
Pete, I'll have a word with you off camera.
All right.
So stay there. Right, should we call it a day now?
Oh,
Yeah,
all right then.
All right. Yeah, go on. Bye, everybody.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Bye.
Hang on, stop a minute. If we make it another 3 minutes, we'll have been online for 2.5 hours. Is that all right for everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, we want our money's worth. Hey.
We charge you what?
Our money's
Right.
worth.
So finally, I'm going to say my usual. It's Andy, Margaret, Anne, Pete the Nugget, and Beanie Drina. Got anything else they want to say tonight?
No.
No, thanks.
Loads, but we'll leave it at that.
Margaret, you have the last word. Just tell us something before we go.
Well, I wanted to ask Andy something, but it's nothing to do with archaeology.
Oh, I tell you what, just ask him now, just in front of everyone. It's going to be relevant.
Where can I take my car to have its MOT?
Oh,
Ernie at Sandside will do it. They'll take it over to the one beyond at Milnthorpe and get it all sorted out for you.
Ernie at Sandside.
Yeah, he's on Quarry Road, literally behind the ship. So you go up past there and come back along Quarry Road until you get to him.
Oh, is that where you go?
Yeah, E&A Autos, they're called.
E&A.
Autos.
Jolly good.
Okay.
Super duper.
because
Right.
they called it E&A because when they said A and E, they thought they were a hospital.
Yeah, got inundated. Yeah.
Now, my garage were going to charge me the most extortionate price. You wouldn't believe it.
He's
So
very
I thought-
good, Eric, as well, because he'll pick your car, he'll pick it up for you at your house, so you don't have to wait around places. And
What,
deliver
this
it back.
E&A Autos will?
Yeah, no, yeah, E&I Autos, yeah.
Oh, is that who
mine
you'd
there.
go to?
Very good.
Oh,
yeah.
that's excellent. Oh, thanks for that.
How's your leg, Margaret, by the way?
It's all right. I've been wearing my brace. I've driven.
Right.
I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I have driven. Probably. I'm driving myself to the hospital tomorrow.
Right.
And he's going to do an x-ray and see if it's knitting together, but I can't
Good.
walk downhill with it.
Right.
I've got to go down like a crab. But and it's still a bit sore, but
I'll bet.
it's
Yeah.
just going to take time.
It will. It will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't overdo it because you don't want to break it again.
No, I don't.
Good. Glad it's healing.
And I've got a great big gash on my head. Can you see that? I've got one eyebrow half an inch lower than the other.
Are you sure it's not a lesion?
Yeah.
Lesion, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Can you
Oh, that's a
see?
good. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
They based it on you.
Yeah.
I think that cheddar man just fell and conked his head on the cave floor.
Yeah, could have done.
Probably fractured his knee as well.
That's why I curled up in a ball going, oh, God.
I curled up in a ball.
Yeah, you see. That's what happened. There's a book in that, Margaret.
Yeah. Did he have his mouth open going, ah!
Yeah, he did. All the pictures have got his mouth open.
Yeah. Well, that could well have been the case.
And he's got cracks on the side of his head where he's been hitting the side of his head because it hurts so much.
Yeah. Who knows?
God. On that note, right, we have now had 2 hours and 31 minutes. If Drina and Anne and Margaret and Andy and Peter haven't got anything else to say, I'm going to call it a night. So I'll see you next week, Tuesday.
Next week.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Carl.
Keep there, Peter. I'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye,
Andy,
everybody. Yeah.
Margaret, Anne, and Drina, and Anne. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wait there, Pete. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to look in the chat box. There was this on you. Got to pick up Karen from station back in 10 minutes. When the hell did he put that up there, Pete?
Oh.
Oh, God. Right. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to stop the live. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.